I'm Amelia Mosley and you're watching BTN. Thanks for hanging out with us again. Let's see what's coming up on today's show. We find out why Aussies are glued to the US election. We ask kids whether they'd like lunch served at school and delve into the psychology of the spooky season. All that soon, but first today, we're going to talk about these two. Last week, Australia got its first visit from the King and Queen since they took the throne. And while many Aussies were excited to see them, it's also reignited debate about whether Australia should become a republic. Here's Jack.
Hear ye, hear ye! The King and Queen were here, ye! Yep, last week Aussies pulled out all the stops for King Charles and Queen Camilla.
Probably like to give this to them. I did this last night and then these are flowers from our garden.
Did you do any practices handing over the flowers? Did you rehearse that?
I didn't really rehearse handing over the flowers, but I rehearsed my bowing.
The royal couple were in Australia for a royal visit, the first royal visit since King Charles became king.
Incidentally, I first came to Australia nearly 60 years ago, which is slightly worrying.
While they were here, they were treated to some gloomy weather, some not so gloomy weather, streets lined with thousands of Aussies eager to say g'day, as well as a good old-fashioned Aussie barbecue. And while a lot of Aussies were pretty stoked to see the King and Queen, others weren't so impressed. This is Senator Lydia Thorpe. She's not shy about voicing her opinion on issues she cares about. And last week was no exception when she protested during a royal reception with the King and Queen at Parliament House.
Give us our land back! Give us what you stole from us! Give us a treaty! We want a treaty in this country!
The whole thing caught the world's attention, and many politicians and Indigenous leaders criticised Thorpe, saying her protest was disrespectful, and that she could have got her message across in a different way.
I thought that behaviour was pretty inappropriate. I think it alienated a lot of people.
I think we do much more when we work together, and I didn't think that was a very productive way to work at all.
Meanwhile, for others, the whole thing has sparked a debate about the British monarchy and its relevance to Australia. You see, Australia is a constitutional monarchy, which basically means the king is our head of state. Why? Well, when Captain Cook landed here in 1770, he declared Australia terra nullius, or land belonging to no one. That wasn't true. First Nations people had been here for tens of thousands of years. But despite this, the land was claimed for the British Crown. When Australia became a federation in 1901, we got a Prime Minister, but kept the King as our head of state. Since then, a lot has changed. Australia is no longer a part of the British Empire, and a lot of Australians have no ancestral ties to the UK. And many people have come to view the British monarchy as a symbol of colonisation and the mistreatment of First Nations people in Australia. Over the years, lots of people have debated whether we should ditch the Brits altogether and become a republic, which is a form of government where there is no king, queen or monarch. Instead, someone is chosen to represent the country as its head of state. But becoming a republic would require a referendum or big public vote to change the constitution. That actually happened in 1999, but Aussies voted against it. And while the Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, says that he isn't against Australia becoming a republic, he says that now isn't the right time. As for Lydia Thorpe, she says a treaty with First Nations people needs to be a part of a future Australian republic, and many agree, while others are hoping for many more royal visits to come. So, what do you think?
I don't really care about the king. I know how it's a big part of Australian history, but I think we should make history instead of focusing on our past history.
Yeah, I think we should become a republic because I think it will boost Australia's culture.
I feel like the presence of the king and queen isn't really felt in Australia, and being a republic wouldn't make that much difference.
This is David Crisafulli. He's just been elected Premier of which state? Is it Queensland, Western Australia or Tasmania? It's Queensland. The Liberal National Party won the state's election on the weekend, defeating the Labor Party, who have been in power in Queensland since 2015. Which of these sports has been axed from the next Commonwealth Games in Glasgow? Is it judo, lawn bowls, or diving? It's diving. It's one of a whole bunch of sports that will be left out of the Games in an effort to save money. What has Elon Musk promised to give away every day until the US election? Is it a Tesla, $1 million, or an NFT?
We're going to be awarding $1 million to randomly to people who have signed the petition.
Yep, it's $1 million. He's only giving it to people who have registered to vote, live in swing states, and have signed a petition on the website of his campaign to support Donald Trump. There are questions about whether it's legal, though. It's against the law in the US to pay people to vote, and some reckon this comes pretty close. Now, did you know the US is about to have an election? Yeah, you've probably heard that a few times by now because it seems like everyone is talking about American politics. But why does something happening on the other side of the world matter to us? Justina looked into it.
Do you know who the leader of the Australian Labor Party is?
No, not yet.
Do you know who the Australian opposition leader is?
Not really.
And what about this guy?
Not sure who he is.
Do you know who's running for president in the US elections this year?
Donald Trump, I think. Kamala Harris and Donald Trump.
And do you know what the two political parties are in the US?
The Democrats and the Republicans.
It seems like we Aussies know a fair bit about US politics. Do you know who this is?
Donald Trump. Donald Trump. Yeah, too easy.
Maybe even more than we do about Australian politics. Who is this guy?
I forgot his name. Peter Malinowskis.
So why? Well, there's no denying that US politics are, well, colourful.
You think you just fell out of a coconut tree?
Well, I'm looking for a job, and I've always wanted to work at McDonald's.
That's got a bit to do with the fact that voting is voluntary, which means the candidates have to work hard to get voters' attention. Then there's the fact that US culture is all around us.
Why are you so old?
But the influence of the US goes way beyond its ability to entertain. See, the US is considered to be the world's superpower. It has the world's biggest economy, and the US dollar is the global currency, which means it's used for international trade. And the US has the most powerful military, with bases in more than 160 countries, not to mention a whole bunch of nuclear weapons. All this means that what happens in the US can have a big impact on the rest of the world, including Australia.
The outcome of the American elections are incredibly important for the global economy, for our security here in the region, and just how Australian politicians and Australian society evolves.
So how did America get so influential and powerful? Well, let's go back in time a bit. That's too far back. There we go. America's rise to superpower status started around World War II. The US was one of the few countries that came out of the war with a strong economy and military, and it used that strength to try and influence other countries. They created the United Nations and loaned a lot of money to countries devastated by the war. And as rivalry grew with another growing superpower, the Soviet Union, the US grew its own military and established NATO, the world's most powerful military alliance. It also became Australia's most important military ally. Over the years, the US has played a huge role in world politics. It's led conflicts, helped to broker peace deals, and kept some tensions between rival countries at bay. And right now, it's playing a major role in some major conflicts, with its weapons and financial support, which is why many experts say that this election is so important. The US political candidates have some pretty different ideas about the role that the US should play in world affairs. Trump
on the other hand, threatened to abandon NATO.
I said, no, you have to understand, you don't pay your bills, you get no protection.
In fact, the US political candidates have some pretty different ideas about a lot of things.
Low IQ, she's a low IQ individual.
We know what Donald Trump wants. He wants unchecked power.
And experts say that could affect other countries.
I think some Australian politicians might look at Trump's divisive rhetoric and his desire to excite people, and if he wins, they might mimic that too.
And with just a week to go before the US elections, you'll be seeing a lot more of these two, whether you like it or not.
I think they're going to put up an even match and it's going to be like a pretty close election.
I reckon I'm going for Camilla Harris as well.
Go Donald Trump. I don't really have an opinion on that topic.
When did the first woman run for president in the US? Was it 1872, 1976, or 2016? It was way back in 1872. Victoria Woodhull was a stockbroker, journalist and suffragette who ran for the presidency decades before American women were given the right to vote.
Hi BTN, we're watching from Nyah Primary School in WA.
Now to Queensland, where during the election campaign, there was a lot of talk about this. Well, not this sandwich specifically, but about school lunches and whether or not they should be provided at school for free. Ren found out more.
School lunches in Hollywood movies tend to look a little something like this.
Wow! Cafeteria, dirty tables, sloppy joes.
Gross, what is this stuff?
There's like a naughty kids table and then like a good kids table, and
one with the popular girls, one with the nerds.
The lunch lady will just like serve a big pile of slop.
I made them extra sloppy for you.
Of course, here in Australia, we have to bring our own food from home. Not again.
Don't you make your own lunches, Ren?
Oh yeah, true. But school lunch programs are actually a very real thing in many parts of the world. In fact, it's estimated that around 380 million kids right around the globe receive free meals at school. It's an idea that dates back to the 1790s in Germany, when this guy, Count Rumford, started offering free food to children who couldn't afford to eat at home. Then, in the US, during the Industrial Revolution, when there was a lot of poverty, organisations began serving hot meals to students to try and give young people a more equal opportunity to succeed at school. Today, many countries run school lunch programs, such as India, Sweden, Finland, Estonia, the UK and the US, where lunch is either provided to everyone for free or to students who need it most. And recently, the possibility of a school lunch program has been discussed right here in Australia. Well, Queensland specifically. Yep, you're watching Queensland's former Premier Stephen Miles make a sandwich on stage. Let me tell you why. Basically, his party said that if they were re-elected over the weekend, they would supply free lunches to all state primary school students.
This is a policy that will be good for kids, good for teachers, and good for parents too.
Now, Labor didn't win the election, so free school lunches won't be happening in Queensland anytime soon. But he's not the first person to suggest something like this. Back in November last year, a parliamentary committee published this report, which called on the government to consider a national school meals program to make sure kids were getting the right nutrition and help them focus and learn at school. We all know how important it is to fuel your brain with a healthy meal. And lately, that's become a lot harder for many families because of the cost of living crisis. In fact, free meal programs run by charities and schools have seen a big rise in demand. But getting a school lunch program up and running would be really expensive and take a lot of organising.
Have we got the capacity as tuck shops, P&Cs, school communities? How are we going to implement this?
Some people think there are better ways to help struggling families than giving out free lunches. But what do you think?
It may cost a lot of money and it would take a lot of resources.
Although it is expensive, I think it's a good idea for people with disadvantages.
I'm quite picky with the types of food that I eat, so I'm not really keen.
If you could pick anything to be on the menu, what would you pick?
A zinger box, pizza or chips.
Fried ice cream.
Sushi.
A possum. Anyone want to trade?
No.
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 Definitely not.
Yes.
Hi, BTN! We're watching you from Prospect Primary School.
This Thursday is Halloween, when we have a little fun with things that creep us out, whether it's ghosts, skeletons, monsters, or spiders. Oh, but have you ever wondered why those things scare us? And why sometimes being scared is actually kind of fun, except for spiders. Here's Jack.
Okay, so remember, this is the first time that you've seen the monster, so make it really scary.
Okay, really scary. No, I got it.
Action.
It's so spooky in here. I'd hate for something to just jump out and
Oh, boo!
Cut!
Oh, what, too scary?
No, quite the opposite, really. I want it really scary.
Really scary. No, okay, I got it. Okay.
Action.
Oh my goodness, it's so cold in here. How did I get here?
Cut!
What? Cats can be scary.
I'm actually allergic, so yeah, cats are pretty scary to me.
You're not a cat. You're a monster.
Okay, a monster. All right, sorry, one more time. All right.
And action.
Whether it's cats, scary movies, or monsters, there are some things in life that just scare us.
What's that?
It's my electricity bill. What, it scared me when I saw it. But have you ever wondered why exactly we get scared? No, I haven't. Hang on, everyone. I've got to go and find out why we get scared in order to scare. Take 5, everyone. To help find out, I caught up with Amy from the Australian National University.
Boom! Sorry, I didn't mean to scare you there. I guess the first question is basically why do we get scared?
Fear is really a protective system. It's something that we've developed over many, many millions of years to keep us safe. Kind of like an inbuilt alarm system that warns us about potential dangers. So imagine back in time when we used to live outside in the wild, and if we came across, a danger on the plane, like a lion, we needed to act really fast to survive. Now, what this meant is that people who had stronger fear instincts were more likely to survive and pass those genes on to their children.
Amy says that when we're scared, our brains release a hormone called adrenaline, which gets our body ready for something known as fight or flight.
So going back to the lion example, obviously the best thing that we can do as humans there is to get away, so to flee. But imagine if you're cornered and there's nowhere to go to, you might need to fight back.
Amy says that what we're scared of can be influenced by our experiences.
Like if we get bitten by a dog, we might learn to be scared of dogs from that. But a bigger way is through something that we call observational learning. And that's when we see something happen to somebody else, whether it's in person or maybe on TV or online now.
While being scared of things that bite makes a lot of sense, Amy says our inbuilt alarm system can also cause us to be scared of things that aren't really dangerous or don't actually exist.
We often find things where we feel uncertain or unsure a little bit scary because we find them really hard to predict. And of course, when things around us are dark, we can no longer rely on our vision. So you take that away, we feel a bit scared and a bit uncertain.
Despite all of that, there are plenty of people who enjoy a good fright, whether it's a scary movie or a trick or treat.
So when you're watching a scary movie, your mind knows that you're really safe, but your body's still having this very quick reaction that makes it feel afraid. And so you get the adrenaline rush paired with this kind of, I know I'm safe. And that can feel a bit more like excitement or thrilling than it actually does kind of the really terrifying fear.
Speaking of films...
Okay, so I think in order to scare Tiffany, we first need to understand what will activate her flight or fight instincts.
Okay, let me think.
Right, I'm done. I'm scrubbing the film. Go back to your day jobs, people. No!
Oh, well, that seemed to work. Did we get that? Did we get it on camera?
The Constellation Cup has been snatched from our grasp by New Zealand. Yeah, a 47-goal performance from Grace Weekey put the Silver Ferns in the top spot, beating the Diamonds 61-43 and marking 5 years since their last win on Aussie soil. But something else is marking 10 years, and that's the WBBL. The anniversary season's off to a pretty good start for the Sydney Sixers, taking down the Melbourne Renegades at Adelaide Oval over the weekend. Elise Perry laid some crucial groundwork, but it was Kiva Bray who brought it home. And by the way, she's 15 years old.
Boundary at 15 years of age and her Year 9 teammates go, how good is that?
It was a stunner of a debut for Kiva, who's now made history as the competition's youngest ever player. And hey, speaking of making history, there's been a big first for Australia at Skate Canada 2024 from young duo Anastasia Golubeva and Hector Giotopoulos-Moore. They snapped up bronze in the pairs category thanks to this performance, snagging Australia its first ever Grand Prix medal in ice skating.
Finally today, we're going to meet Nyah, who's a winner of the ABC's Haywire competition. It asks young people in regional areas to share their stories. And Nyah's going to tell us about her connection with her family's two cultures. Check it out.
I love the beach. It takes me to my family. My pop taught my dad to surf and Dad taught me. The surfing culture is in my blood. On my mum's side, we are Wiradjuri mob. I walk the line between my two cultures. Coast and country, saltwater and freshwater. Recently, Mum, Nan and I went on an epic 3 generations road trip to Brewarrina, New South Wales to learn about my late great-great-grandmother's country and traditions. Her mob are Nyimba mob. We attended the Biami's Nyunu festival, which gets its name from the ancient fish traps along the river. There was a big corroboree with mobs from all nations. It felt really good to connect with my ancestry. In the future, I'll be the one who shares this information onto the next generation. I'm lucky to have such strong women in my life. Their activism inspires me. When I was in Year 4, I remember being confronted by a book in the school library that used offensive and outdated language about my people. I took it up with the teachers and they found that the books hadn't been checked over for years. After that, they started putting in more culturally appropriate books. It was a real stand-up moment for me, and it gave me confidence that change can happen through action. And I've never looked back. From the river to the ocean, I know who I am. I'm strong, compassionate, and when I'm not, I have the people around me to hold me up. I will stand with my people as long as I can.
Well, that's it for this week. I hope you've had fun and learned some things. We'll be back next week with more. And in the meantime, you can jump on our website or keep up to date with Newsbreak right here in the studio every single weeknight. Have the best week and I'll see you soon. Bye.